Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon to talk about the RCD Financial Assistance Grant Management. We're going to walk through the invoicing and reporting process and take some of your questions. The easiest and best way to get us your question is to use the chat function that's available through BlueJeans. Otherwise, we'll get started now. Please hold your questions till the end of the presentation. And if you're calling in on our conference line, please mute your phone. We're lucky to have with us today our legal advisor, Jessica Rader. So she's here with us as well. We also have Gail Chun, myself, Jenny DeStefano, and Richard from our IT department is helping us out quite a bit with this BlueJeans technology. So welcome, everybody. Excuse me. So DOC has had a proud partnership with the RCDs for nearly 80 years. We understand that you've put a lot of hard work into this program already, and we sincerely appreciate your efforts. We're pleased that this program is now underway, and we really look forward to seeing what you are going to accomplish with this money. So let's talk a little bit about the purpose of this funding. The purpose is to help build RCD capacity and to help RCDs implement best management practices and meet basic legal requirements, as described in Tier 1 of the 2014 Vision and Standards document, which I'm sure you all remember. The funding will help encourage consistency with the Vision and Standards and encourage RCDs to become more relevant, excellent, and visible. This program is going to have some requirements. The grant's going to require you to do some record keeping. Keep in mind that we're not doing this we're not recommending this just because we like you to keep records. We want you to be able to pass a state audit. We recommend creating a designated file for all grant-related documents that's labeled with your grant number. And you will need to your file will need to include all grant-related documents and documentation of all the actions you take under the grant. Keep your original receipts and other supporting documentation in your grant file. You only need to submit the copies to DOC. We don't want the originals, just copies of the originals, and it's your job to keep the originals. As far as competitive bid requirements go, please be sure to check the competitive bid and prevailing wage requirements for your organization. And conflict of interest. Anyone paid out of the grant can't sign invoices or request budget changes. These requests must come from the grantee's authorized representative or a designee who's not paid under the grant. We're doing this because it creates a system of checks and balances to protect the RCD as well as the department. For example, if a budget change is required, the grant manager can write up the request and then have a board member sign the request. That way, the board's informed of any budget or work plan changes in the grant and the board isn't caught off guard. This is a standard system of checks and balances, which really all organizations should be using. And now I'm going to turn it over to Gail Chun to talk about invoicing.
Oops. I'm going to use the system, so excuse me. I'm Gail Chun. Most of you already know me because, okay, thank you, Richard. Most of you already know me because I've been at DLRP for 17 years now. But for those of you that don't know me, just briefly, I've been managing grants for about 25 years now. I used to work as a botanist for the Nature Conservancy of Hawaii, and then I was working for RCD as a grant manager for 4 years, and then I moved over to the state. So I'm going to be going over the invoicing requirements and forms with you today. And the forms were tailored to your approved grant based on your budget, and Jenny and I went and individualize each of your grant forms, your invoice forms before sending it out to you. So you should all have those forms already. Please don't modify any of the forms. We have embedded formulas in the form that will automatically calculate the totals and also the admin for you. So if you find any errors or need to make any modifications, please contact your assigned grant manager and we'll be happy to help you fix the form or modify it. Invoices are due quarterly based on your grant start date or the date that the quarter that you choose. And typically with most grants, invoicing will start on the grant start date. So that's the date that the grant was fully executed. But we did a survey a few weeks ago and we heard from the RCDs that some of you might like to go on a fiscal quarter or delay the invoicing quarter a little bit. And in order to accommodate everyone, we're going to let the RCDs choose their own starting quarter. So you can either start on the grant start date, you can start a little later if your grant got started a little later, or you can base your invoices on a fiscal quarter, meaning January through March, April through June. So it's up to you. So when you select your own invoicing quarter, and then your invoices will then be due 3 months thereafter for the remainder of the grant. Okay, now, which button? Right. Okay, thank you. Oops. Okay. So, sorry about that. All right. Okay. The invoice packet consists of a couple of forms, and this packet may look complicated, but it's merely an illusion, and I'll go over it with you. So it may look complicated, but we're trying to make the system as simple for everyone, because Jenny and I don't like reviewing tons of paperwork either. So I'll be going over all the forms, and I'll answer any questions you have at the end. So basically, the invoice packet will consist of a quarterly invoice summary form, and then we have an Excel sheet that has 2 tabs. It'll have detail A, which will be for personnel costs, and detail B will be for all other costs. So it's on the same Excel sheet. They've been tailored to your grant, and they're just on different tabs, and they will cross-reference, the formulas will cross-reference and calculate. And then we also have the match support form, which again looks complicated, but it's not. So it has drop-down tabs, so it's very, very easy to use, and I'll be explaining that. Okay, for reimbursable expenditures, you will have to submit support documentation, such as timesheets, invoices, receipts, etc. There must be some way to confirm costs and charges that are made under the grant. And in order to help us process your invoices more quickly, we have utilized a cross-reference system. So on your invoice form, we've already put down the cross-reference numbers, and all you need to do is take those numbers and write it on the upper right-hand corner of your support documents that matches that number on the invoice, so that we can quickly cross-reference the receipt or the timesheet and check the invoices, because Jenny and I do actually check all the invoices before they go to accounting. So nothing fancy required, just handwrite the cross-reference number on the upper right-hand corner of your support document. Okay, regarding personnel time tracking, we require timesheets document personnel expenses. So timesheets must be signed by both the employee and their supervisor. And this is a requirement from the Department of Finance, which I'll talk about in a little bit. However, if you're using an electronic time accounting payroll system, instead of submitting individual timesheets, you may provide the payroll spreadsheets that shows the information required to support the work done on the grant. And to satisfy the requirement for the electronic payroll system, we just need a one-time letter from your board that certifies that the payroll is done electronically, and that each employee and their supervisor electronically verifies their hours and activities on those payroll sheets. And just to let you know, this double signature requirement came about because the Department of Finance did an audit at DOC a couple years ago, and they had 10 auditors in our office, stationed in our office for 2 months, and they combed through every aspect of our grants. And the only requirement they came up with after the audit was that they needed the timesheets to have double signatures on them. So that's the one requirement that the Department of Finance suggests that we add to all future grant programs, and that's why we have this requirement. And it's just for accountability. And just to let you know, the Department of Finance has already contacted us this year, and they are going to be doing another full-blown audit in the coming months. So that's why we want to make sure that everything's in order when you start these grants, because they are very, very detailed, and they will select certain grantees to go out and visit. And they'll go out and visit, and they'll be stationed at your office for, I think it was 3 days, and they'll go over all your grant files in the office. And so, so we have these regulations not because we like them, but because to help you, pass the audit as well. So the first form is going to be the invoice summary form, and it's very, very simple. I'm going to show you an example of it. So basically, you're just going to fill out very basic information, the date. We've already put the grant number on the forms for you. Invoice number, label the invoices sequentially, starting from 1. Just do 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't add DOC1, DOC1B. Don't add any. Accounting just likes to see the numbers 1 through 10, etc. It's very important to put down the invoice time period. Without the time period, the full time period, accounting will kick back the invoices. You fill in your grantee name if it's not on the form, and then all you're going to do is take the totals that are calculated automatically on the Excel sheet and transfer them over to this sheet. And it may seem like a hassle, but the reason is we need a sheet that is internally stamped by both us and accounting, and this cover sheet serves that purpose. And you'll then have your authorized representative or designee sign and date this the invoice cover sheet in blue ink. So the next forms are the invoice details A and B forms, and these forms are going to be used for you to use to report all grant expenditures and including match. The forms, as I said, are tailored to your grant budget. Detail A is going to be the yellow tab, and it's for personnel costs, and that includes reimbursable, cash, and in-kind match as well. So you're going to put all costs, whether reimbursable or match, on the same form, and you're going to include task numbers on the right-hand column. And for the task numbers, what we're just asking is for the overall task number. So we know that some of the tasks go down to subtasks, but what you're going to just do is put the overall task number there and then talk about the subtasks or talk about more detail in the report. So basically for the invoice, for invoicing purposes, just put the overall task numbers that your personnel worked on for that particular invoice. And so this is a sample of detail A, which, as I said, is for personnel costs. So you're just going to put in the invoice number. Everything's already tailored to your grant, so you're just going to fill in the the sections where you see in red. So you're just going to put in, how much of that particular cost was reimbursable, how much was a match, and then the task number. So invoice detail B is the green tab, and that's for all other costs, so non-personnel costs. So it's going to be the same thing. You're going to put in the invoice number on top, but if you're using consultants, please list the consultants by name or position title. And we understand that some of the consultants may have been hired after this grant start date, so you might have to write in that information on your own onto this form. So here's a sample of detail B. So once again, you're only going to fill out the areas that are in red. So you're going to put down the invoice number and what costs are reimbursable, what part of that cost is matched, and then the overall task numbers. And as you can see, the cross-reference numbers are already on your sheets, and they're on the far left-hand column. And so you're just going to take that cross-reference number. So if you have a consultant invoice, you just take cross-reference 2.1, and you're going to put it on that consultant's invoice on the upper right-hand corner. Just some basic invoicing tips. In order to ensure accuracy, we recommend a secondary review before submitting invoice packets. When I worked at the Nature Conservancy, because we mapped rare plants and animal data, our standard procedure was to double check. Everyone had to have their work double checked by 2 other people. So we always did what we call a double QC. And it's in order to ensure accuracy. And the reason is if you send in invoices that have mistakes or such, then we have to set it aside and then call you and work out the issues or make the corrections, and that delays your invoice. So if you can have someone double check it, make sure everything's in the packet's complete, it's signed in blue ink, then it makes it easier, faster for you to get payment. And typically the payment process takes 6 weeks because when the invoice arrives at our office, they're processed in the order that they arrive. And DOC has 2 weeks to process, and then it goes to our accounting office, and then it goes to the controller's office. So accounting has 2 weeks, and the controller has 2 weeks. And that's the reason why we need 3 hard copies. It's because our accounting and the controller's office cannot accept electronic invoices at this time. So you do have to submit 3 copies. 1 copy stays with us. 1 goes to our accounting division for processing, and the original goes to the controller's office. And like I said, we wish we could do electronic invoicing, but it's a requirement from the controller's office at this time. But what we will do, and we invite you to do, is if you'd like to send in a draft of your first invoice or a draft of any invoice or report for me or Jenny to review for you before you submit the actual signed copy, please feel free to do so. Go ahead and email it to us, and we'll look over it and make any corrections or give you feedback before you actually send in the original, so that it avoids any problems or having it delayed for processing. Okay, the match support form is actually a PDF form, and it's a standard form that we use for our other grants. So basically, you're going to use 1 match form for each provider. For example, if NRCS is providing a vehicle, staff time, and maybe a meeting room, all of that information will go on 1 sheet, and it will be signed by the NRCS representative. So you don't need a separate sheet for each match. It's 1 match form per provider. So if the RCD itself is providing match based on other grants, personnel time and such, it will all go on 1 sheet, and the district manager can then sign the match form. And there are drop-down tabs. So here's a sample of the form. So you're just going to put down the type of service, product or service. So for instance, it's, personnel time, so-and-so worked, 10 hours at $25 an hour. And so you put in the number of units, so 10 hours, and it will calculate for you. And under match type, it will be a drop-down tab, and you'll either click cash or in-kind, and then simply put the date or the period that the donation was made. So, for example, if a person worked for the entire quarter, just put down the quarter under the date. And like I said, bottom is the name of the provider. So if the RCD provide the match, if it's a grant given to the RCD, then the RCD can put down the match and sign the form. And because this is a standard form, go ahead and ignore the total funding commitment for the grant and the percentage of funding provided to date. So you can ignore those two lines because those are for another grant, and this is a standard form we're using. So go ahead and have it signed by the provider. It doesn't have to be an original signature. Your provider can fax it in or do an electronic signature that is acceptable for the match form. And I'll hand it back to Jenny to go over the reports.
So let's talk a little bit about progress reports. Progress reports are due quarterly. Whether you submit an invoice or not, you're going to have to submit a quarterly report. You'll need to send in one electronic copy and one hard copy to your assigned grant administrator. If possible, send in a double-sided hard copy so that we can save trees and paper. And please avoid altering or reformatting the form that we've provided with you for you. So when you're writing your report, remember your progress report should focus on your success stories. Use the report to tell us about your success rather than just providing us a list of completed tasks. Use the report to promote your great work. And pictures or videos are really strongly encouraged to highlight the RCD's accomplishments. Our email system can accept up to 30 megabytes in size, so don't be afraid to submit your photos and videos electronically. In the past, we were more limited, so now we have a much greater capacity, so don't let that scare you from sending in your videos and your photos. And I want to talk a little bit about the financial narrative section. It is required by the Public Resources Code, section 9084. And this part of your report does not have to be extensive. All we really need is a brief financial narrative that tells us if the expenditures and match are on track. And if you should have a need for budget or work plan changes, changes are allowable. You'll want to contact your grant administrator to request changes. And remember, changes will not be valid unless they're made in writing and agreed to by both parties. Budget or line item changes of more than $5,000 are going to require a formal amendment to the agreement and would require written approval from both the RCD and the department. Board members or grantees or the grantee's authorized designee may sign the budget change request. This is another conflict of interest measure and keeps the board updated on grant changes or modifications. So rather than just allowing the grant manager to sign, we need somebody who's not paid through the grant to make the change request. It's a good practice for audit purposes. And as Gail mentioned, Department of Finance informed DLRP that they will be auditing all of our grant programs soon. Some additional tips. When you email or write us, please include your grantee name and grant number. We have 59 RCD grants and we have other grant programs as well. So when you tell us your grant number and name, it really helps everybody here get your stuff to the right place faster. Please do not hesitate to ask us questions. We're definitely here to help you and want to answer your questions. So if you ever get stuck, if you ever feel like you really don't understand something, don't just send something in before asking a question. Ask a question. Email or phone, however you need to reach us, please feel free to do that. And this slide has our contact information. Hopefully you've all received that already, but here it is again, just in case you don't have it. And now let's take some questions. It looked like I already had a question from Candy. Is the PowerPoint available to download or print? It is not yet available online, but we will both email it out soon and post it on our website. So we'll send out a link with that as soon as it's available. And I can also just go ahead and send that to you right away. Any other questions?
We can open up the phone lines or unmute everyone. So if they
Yeah, let's try
Do we
that.
need to unmute this?
No, this one's on
Oh,
mute.
that one's okay.
Mhm.
Do we have any questions in the audience?
It looks like we have
They're
a
talking,
couple
but we
people
can't hear them.
talking, but we can't hear you.
That could just be as simple as background noise.
Yeah.
You might have to get closer to the computer mic.
Okay.
And if that doesn't work, use the chat to type in your question.
Anne from the Course Gold RCD, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Anne.
Just want to thank you for all the work you've done. The individualizing forms and stuff for everybody. I know that took effort and work, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you're doing this to help explain and recording it, because all that's very helpful.
Welcome.
Thanks for all your work, Anne.
You're welcome.
And like we said, like Jenny said, anytime you need, even if you need clarification or something, just feel free to contact us. We're here to help you, and we want to help you make your grant successful. That's another question.
So it looks like Kelly Perez has a question. What do you mean when you say if you were paid by the grant?
So if in your budget, for example, you're the district manager and there's funding in your budget for your position that's going to pay for your district manager job, then you're paid through the grant.
Any additional questions by chance? Anyone in the audience? Looks like we're starting to get some through here. So, Allie Warren, but match items do not count, correct?
Yes, if somebody is only providing match and is not reimbursed at all, then they count as somebody who could sign the invoice and request budget changes.
Yeah, if you're providing match, you are not paid out of the grant. You're providing match to the grant.
Says thank you. Okay, thank you. Chris Kelly, I have not received the individualized form for the RCD GSDC. Can you please forward a copy to chris.kelly@rcdsandiego.org?
Sure, we'll get that to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, we sent all of the forms to the person on the contact list that sent in the grant proposal, so it might have gone to a different person. So we'll check and we'll get you the forms as soon as possible.
Then we have Raina from the ODUP RCD. I have not received my individualized form either. My email is mrcd.rgbare more@hotmail.com.
Okay. Like I said, we'll get you the forms. Thanks for letting us know, because we sent the forms to the person listed on as the contact person on the proposal. So we will get you the forms as well.
Veronica Woodruff has a question. Will you be having another webinar? We are a small organization with few staff members. And Raina says thank you.
No, we're not planning to do another webinar. That's why we're taping this one, and we'll be posting it on our website. It should be within a week or so. And we can also email you the presentation immediately if you need that.
And we're also available to talk through it with you. So if you'd want to work, if you would prefer to work one-on-one with us, that's always an option.
Yeah, so just make an appointment. So if this webinar didn't answer your questions, or you have more questions that come up later, just contact me or Jenny and make an appointment with your grant manager. We'll go over whatever questions you have individually.
And Veronica says, okay, thanks.
Any more questions? If not, we thank you for your time for attending this webinar. We really appreciate all of the hard work you've put in. And like we said, feel free to contact me or Jenny anytime. And we can help you through stuff, or we can answer any questions or clarify anything. Please feel free to do that.
We got a bunch of thanks from Kelly, Ben, and Chandra, and Ollie.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all, and have a great weekend.